uh, the Slow Motion Academy, representing 2.5 million federal workers now. We are going to have the Sandy Awards, the annual awards, like from given in Los Angeles and Hollywood, the Academy Awards. So I wanted to select what I thought were the 10 most important achievements, or 11 most important achievements in my federal career. So some of you have already mentioned them, and when I say it, it really was teamwork. Each of these projects that I worked on were based on collaborative efforts by many of you here in the room, outside of the room. Nothing gets done here in Washington just individually. If people are willing to take credit, there's a lot of success, a lot of things, good things could happen if people are willing to give credit. And so let's start here. So the first category is the Best Overseas Achievement Award. Best Overseas Achievement Award? Sorry, but the naming of the winning achievement cannot be released until 2023, and it remains classified. If I release it, my federal career may be extended by the Justice Department, so I'm sorry about that. Number 10, the Osama bin Laden Memorial Award. Number 1, here are the nominees. Number 1, secretly arranging with Senate staff to keep the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, with its support for worldwide forecasting, an independent agency if the Commerce Department was abolished. Number 2, nominee number 2, hailing an airport shuttle van at the Denver airport in 2009 for a congressional staff delegation visiting the National Energy Renewable Laboratory that happened to be driven by a Nasrallah Zazi, an Al-Qaeda-trained terrorist who at the time was planning a suicide bombing attack on the New York City subway system. Thank God the plot was discovered, and he is now awaiting sentencing in New York City. I'm sure glad I gave him a big tip. Number 3, being part of the Senate team that created the Department of Homeland Security. The envelope, please. I don't have an assistant here. And the winner is detailed to the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee writing legislation to create the new Department of Homeland Security. I was working for former Senator Fred Thompson. I was assigned to protect the Coast Guard. Thanks to former Senator Olympia Snowe, the Coast Guard Commandant was granted a direct reporting relationship to the Secretary of Homeland Security. And now, because of my connections to Senator Thompson, I can get a cheap reverse mortgage as I look forward to the golden years. Okay. Here, just a moment. The category number 9, the Information Overload Award. Number 1, first nominee, sneaking aboard the U.S. Army-run night train from Frankfurt to Berlin using my reserve ID card against all Army and Allied regulations. Category number 2 nominee, convincing USDA to name a scholarship program in honor of its author, Senator Thad Cochran of Mississippi. Number 3, creating a new state and territorial database for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And the winner is NOAA in your state and territory. I created and maintained the first public accessible state-by-state programmatic database for a federal agency that could be updated whenever necessary. Category number 8, the Spears into Pruning Hooks Award. Against all Senate rules, asked by Senator Percy to chair the conclusion of a Senate Governmental Affairs Subcommittee hearing. As a staff person. Against all rules. Writing NOAA Chief Scientist Sylvia Earle's testimony on the damage of the Persian Gulf caused by Saddam Hussein. 3, breathing new life into the Camp David Accords. And the winner is breathing new life into the post-Camp David Israel-Egyptian exchange. At USDA, I was put in charge of a joint Egyptian-Israeli U.S. Agricultural Scientific Exchange. It was a follow-up to Camp David. I looked at the profile of the project, which was funded by Representative Henry Waxman. The Egyptians saw the project as a way of advancing agriculture through the use of solar radiation instead of chemicals to control nematodes, increase dairy production in hot climates, and grow crops in saline soils. I even learned to walk like an Egyptian. And by the way, Secretary Kerry is interested in reviving this program, I just learned. Number 7, the Macho Man Award. As a Senate staffer asking the Labor Department to do a quote-unquote congressionally mandated report on late unemployment compensation checks going to those people in Illinois, Senator Percy's constituents. Number 2, spending my entire executive branch career condemned to manage almost 100 congressionally mandated reporting requirements set by Senate staffers like Howard Marks. Number 3, opening up the military's global positioning system navigational satellites for civilian use. Please, winner for number 7. Satellites, GPS satellites, getting OMB to waive the GPS user fee, following the downing of Korean airliner 007. And Rick, by the way, I never would have recommended that you go on Korean Airlines. Trust me.
Got it.
All right, Korean Airlines 007 over the former Soviet Union, because we were fearful that President Reagan would impose a grain embargo on the sales of the former Soviet Union. We thought a far better approach would be to open up GPS to civilian use to avoid aircraft going off course, which was the cause for the downing of the 007, plus, of course, Soviet Union indifference to human life. However, OMB balked and wanted to impose a user fee, which the airlines didn't want to pay. At a press conference, Senator Percy urged the GPS be made available to airlines without a fee. Within hours, President Reagan declassified the GPS and moved it from a pure military effort into the civilian sector with no user fees. Now, men like me can now use our GPSs without having to ask directions legitimately. So, unlike women. Category number 6, the Miracle on 15th Street Award. Number 1, securing a taped World Food Day message by President Reagan that was played around the world. Number 2, being confused for a civil rights worker investigating hearing aid fraud in Florida because I said, quote unquote, I was an investigator to the minority, unquote. Number 3, showcasing the success of strip mine coal reclamation projects during a nationally televised event. And the winner is where's Michelle Obama when you need her to open these envelopes? Number 3 is the winner, the Christmas Pageant of Peace. As the external director for the Office of Surface Mining at the Interior Department, I wanted to showcase how my agency was taking abandoned strip mines and making them productive. One of those was growing Christmas trees on reclaimed mine lands. Working with the National Mining Association and the National Park Service, we transplanted over 56 Western Maryland Scotch pines from a Christmas tree farm on a former strip mine. They were used at the Christmas Pageant of Peace. Now that, and they look beautiful, and now that I am retired, I want to test my irons and woods on the golf courses that have been built on the reclaimed strip mines, abandoned strip mines. Number 5, Best Original Story Awards, coming up with the idea of investigating the relationship between auto theft and stolen parts. Number 2, successfully fighting off car sickness as Algerian authorities sped me through the narrow streets of Algiers as the U.S. co-chairman of the Joint Economic Commission. Number 3, hearing the reassuring voice of a British Airways pilot telling passengers that it was, quote unquote, perfectly ecologically safe to dump fuel over the English Channel as we prepared for an emergency landing at London Heathrow Airport. So that's the real green. My knuckles were white, but that's okay. Number 5. Chop Shop hearings is the winner. Together with many of my former staff colleagues in this room, we organized 5 days of congressional hearings on the ease of stealing carts for their parts called Chop Shops. And and so Rick said I taught him how to, steal these cars. I'm not responsible if you're caught. It included a live demonstration by a master thief in a Senate hearing room. The hearings attracted a national attention and resulted in the U.S. Department of Transportation requiring the marking of major car auto parts. The results speak for themselves. The National Insurance Crime Bureau reports that in 2011, we are on track to continue the national vehicle theft decline. We have not been as low since 1967. The hearings are really a good idea how you could really compete successfully with a movie like Argo, a real Academy Award winner, because our hearing was the only domestic story on the CBS Evening News on the day that the terrorists seized the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. That was the only domestic story on the CBS Evening News, was our Chop Shop hearing. Number 4, the Special Ralph Nader Award. Number 1 nominee, creating a roadmap for the Energy Department to implement 2 critical energy laws passed during the Bush 43 administration, which is the Energy Policy Act and Environment Energy Information, ISA, Independent Security Act. Number 2, browbeating the Federal Trade Commission to preempt state laws forbidding eyeglass price advertising, driving down the price of glasses by 300%. 3, deregulating domestic aviation, saving consumers millions and billions. And the winner is oops, we have a tie. We have a tie. The tie is airline deregulation legislation, as Bill mentioned, helped convince Senator Percy it was a good idea for Illinois, and more importantly, that it was a good idea for United Airlines. We formed a coalition to spearhead business support for airline deregulation, and work with the staff of Senator Ted Kennedy, and yes, one of the staffers that worked on the issue before I arrived, but was helped formulate the foundation, was one of the Supremes, Stephen Breyer, one of our associate justices. Senator Percy was given credit for giving airline deregulation credibility on Wall Street. I was invited to the White House for the signing ceremony by President Carter and received a signing pen. Here. Thanks to deregulation, Sandy and I traveled on AirTran to Fort Lauderdale recently for $118 round trip, almost the same cost